sincere souls who want to realize the supreme absolute truth, the essential truth of human life. The purpose of human life is to realize who we are. So we get this opportunity only through the spiritual subject matter. And the essence of the scriptures is given in Bhagavad Gītā. So numbers are few, but as it is said, one moon is sufficient to dissipate the darkness of the night. So you are all welcome, and we will discuss on some of the questions which have been forwarded by you. Before I begin, I will start with invocation of Mangalacharan. How many of you, I would request all of you to tune in your videos. It is like a one-to-one session. If we have our videos on, then we can have more participation and better interaction. So I begin with the invocation. How many of you have the copy of Bhagavad Gītā with you? Bhagavad Gītā as it is. If you are not having, then we can deliver to you. Okay. आकाश, हरे कृष्णा, आपको सुनाई दे रहा है?
जी प्रभु जी, सुनाई दे रहा है।
अच्छा, आपको भगवत गीता मिल पाई वहां से, वाराणसी के सेंटर से, या अभी नहीं जा पाए आप?
सर अभी नहीं जा पाया सर।
अच्छा, तो देखिए, नहीं तो आप हमें एड्रेस भेजिए तो हम आपको भेज देंगे।
जी प्रभु जी।
ठीक है, लेट अस बिगिन।
जी।
ओम अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिंधु भैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशकारिणे। हरे कृष्णा। So we have been very fortunate that we have so far been able to at least cover one section. Bhagavad Gita is presented in 3 sections. The first 6 chapters comprise the first section, which mainly focuses on Karma Yoga. How to reach the Supreme by performing the prescribed actions. And the very important verse which was spoken in the second chapter, which Krishna told, because Arjuna, we see Arjuna, he was not agreeing to perform his prescribed action as a Kshatriya. He wanted to flee. He wanted to run away from the battle. In this fear of receiving sinful reaction, so Krishna encouraged him. And through Arjuna, Krishna emphasized to all of us that every one of us, it is imperative for us to perform our prescribed actions, our dutiful actions. Dutiful action is beautiful action. Because action done according to one's social order and its social position elevate one's, it uplifts one to come to the stage of self-realization. And the very important verse Krishna spoke in the second chapter was Karmanyavadhikaraste, that you have the right to perform your prescribed duty. And in the third chapter, he said that not even for a moment one can refrain from performing his action. Nahi kashit shanamapi jatu tishtanti akarmate. Karate hi avsha karma sarve prakriti jatmana. Third chapter and fifth verse. Krishna says that everyone is forced to act helplessly according to the influence of the mode he has. So no one can refrain from acting. So maybe if we are physically not working, we will be mentally working. It's not possible to stop our mind from working. There are so many thoughts, there are so many desires, there are so many aspirations which are always flowing from the mind that cannot be seized or that cannot be stopped. And Krishna in the fourth chapter, Krishna gave the transcendental knowledge, the knowledge of the living entity being eternal, which is spoken in the second chapter, and his relation with the Supreme Lord, that is also eternal. And in the fifth chapter, Krishna spoke that how who is situated in knowledge, who has realized his eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord, who has realized his eternal existence, how he performs action. He performs action without attachment. He performs action as a matter of duty. And such action liberates him to become the lover of the Supreme Lord. And in the sixth chapter, Krishna speaks that the biggest obstacle in performing our duty is no one else but our uncontrolled mind. It is our uncontrolled mind, our impure mind, our untrained mind, which poses the biggest obstacle. So far we have covered this first section. The central point of these first 6 chapters is one should not give away, or one should not shy, or one should not hesitate in performing what is one's duty, whether it is favorable or unfavorable. And under any situation, not performing duty is sin. This is very important. Sin does not mean that you just commit crime. You kill someone or you rob someone, you stab someone is crime. Not performing duty is sin. This is very important. So Krishna is emphasizing that one must perform his duty. But how duty is to be performed? It is to be performed under the guidance of a spiritual master. So there are many questions. Some of you are present, those who have asked the question. So I will take their question first. Yagnesh Prabhu, can you ask Tyagaraj to tune in, because he has sent a question, but I don't see him present today. Very few are present. So if you have his number and if he is available, then he can tune in. So I will also try to address his question. So I will take the question first, which is on the 6th chapter, and this has been forwarded to me by Ravinder. Ravinder, you were there?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah, okay. So you can go ahead. You can ask your question. Before you ask your question, Yagnesh, are you able to hear? Okay.
Yes,
Proceed.
yes, Prabhu.
Okay. So you can speak to Tyagaraj, because
Yes,
I
Prabhu.
wanted to start with this question, but he is not present. So if he
Okay,
is
Prabhu,
available,
yeah.
he can tune in.
Okay,
Okay,
Prabhu.
yes, Ravinder. Go ahead.
Prabhuji, the soul is moving from one body to another because of the fulfillment of desire of mind. and the super soul is also allowed to fulfill the desires by giving us different bodies. So my question is, when the soul leaves one body, does that mind that does that mind also leave that body or dissolve with that particular body?
Okay, very good question. I will repeat the question for proper understanding. His question is that the mind is different from the soul. Now we know the body is different from the soul, which is the gross body. There are three layers. One is the gross body, which we can all see and relate, which is composed of 5 gross elements: earth, water, air, fire, and ether. That we can see, that we can touch, that we can feel. But beyond the gross body is the subtle body, which comprises of mind, intelligence, and ego. Which is subtle. Subtle means that which is not gross or which is not visible, but it exists. And beyond both gross and subtle is the spiritual element, which is soul. So the question that Ravinder is asking is that he has understood from the 6th chapter or from the previous chapter that the mind is different from the soul. And it is, when it is untrained, it is our greatest enemy. As it was discussed in the 6th chapter. Amogila Prabhu gave a very deep insight to it. And then he says that I always feel every moment how I'm suffering through my rascal mind. Okay, very good. If you are becoming aware that the untrained mind is our enemy and how it forces us, how it inflicts pain and suffering on us. Then your question is, the soul is moving from one body to another because of the fulfillment of desires of mind. Yes, very. Yeah, we saw that in the 2nd chapter. Krishna is speaking there. And the super soul is also allowed to fulfill the desire by giving us different bodies. So yes, as we desire, accordingly we get an opportunity to receive the next body after leaving this body. So his question is, when the soul leaves one body, does the mind also leave that body or dissolve with that particular body? Before I answer, can I ask you, what is your understanding? I will give a comprehension on the Shastric aspect. What is your understanding? Whatever it is, you may feel free to speak.
I think Prabhuji, mind is finished with this body, but if then my next question is, if mind is finished, then why with the accumulation of desires, then we got the next body?
So when you are saying that the mind is finished with the body, then how it will be decided that we will get the next body, and how the impressions of the previous bodies will be there in the next body? It is not possible. So the mind does not dissolve. See how the transmigration takes place. It is very nicely explained by Krishna in the 2nd chapter, 13th verse. Yolamani Prabhu, you can show that verse. Dehino asmin yatha dehe Kaumaram Yovanam Jara Tatha Dehantar Praptis Dhiras Tatranam. So what is the bondage? How the soul is conditioned? The soul is conditioned because it is captive in the subtle body, which comprise of mind, intelligence, and ego. And this covering or this captivity is not seen. So see, the Prabhupada says in the translation that as the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at the time of death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a thing. So, how the soul passes, this is very interesting and very important. It is the subtle body which carries the soul from one gross body to another gross body. And what is the subtle body? The immediate covering on the soul, the first covering on the soul is of false ego. What is false ego? False ego means that it gives us, and false means which is not correct. It gives us an understanding that we are this body or we are this mind. So it makes us identify with the matter, not with the soul. It covers the spiritual consciousness of the soul. So the first level of covering is because of false ego. So as we come into this material world, we get this covering of false ego. This is the gift of material nature, that it covers our spiritual identity because of false ego, and we identify ourselves either with the subtle body or with the gross body. And then the next layer of covering is by the intelligence and then by the mind. And Srimad Bhagavatam explains that each has the difference of 10 times. That means that the mind is 10 times subtle than the gross senses. Intelligence is further 10 times subtle than the mind, and false ego is further 10 times subtle than the intelligence. And so on and so on is the most subtle. So in this way, what is the bondage? That the soul is bound in the subtle body. When it moves from one body to another body with the help of the subtle body. The subtle body does not dissolve because till the time it has material desires, it has material aspirations. It forces क्लास ले रहा हूँ मैं आपको 1 घंटे में कॉल करता हूँ please. So that is the transmigration of the soul. You can stop the share. We can have the normal screen. So unless and until the subtle body has become spiritual, the transmigration of the soul will continue. It is like a SIM card. You see a SIM? If you take this SIM card out of your mobile phone and put it in a new mobile, what will happen? All the numbers which were stored in the last mobile, it is there in the SIM card. And through the SIM card, you can have the same number in your new mobile. Body has changed, everything is transformed. This mobile is no longer the same mobile. It's a new mobile. Previously, it could be ordinary mobile. Now you have an Apple mobile or whatever, ABC mobile. But whatever you had the content, it is being carried into the next mobile with the help of the SIM or the memory card. Memory card is a good example. SIM can be the example of the soul, and memory card is the example of the mind. So if people use the memory card, so there is a download of the storage of the memory. So you receive everything in the next. Have you not noticed? That is daily experience we have. Through the mobile phone, if we change, the mobile is lost, nothing is lost. Because everything is stored in the memory and you can download it. What is now? It is cloud. You can store everything on the cloud, and in any device you can download all the contents. So the contents are very easily accessible, traceable, because it is there, it is stored. Similarly, the mind, our mind is the storehouse of all unfulfilled desires. And it is also the storehouse, it is the memory card of all our past experiences. So it has various impressions. So the mind is not dissolved. The mind is only dissolved when it becomes spiritual. When the living entity gets liberated, then there is no rebirth. So this is the process, this is the purpose of Krishna consciousness, is to transform our material mind, which has material attachments, material aspirations, to be spiritual. So because if the mind becomes spiritual, if the subtle body changes, then the transmigration is over. Then there is no transmigration. When we will come to the 13th chapter, in the 13th chapter, which is Jnana Yoga, so Krishna will speak about it. In the 13th chapter, 22nd word, Krishna says that Sad Asad Yoni Janmashu. So he will reveal this truth, that how the living entity gets limited. Yeah, Purusha Prakriti Stohi, Bhomte Prakriti Jadguna, Karanam Guna Sangasya, Sadasad Yoni Janmasu. I'm not taking that verse because when we will come in the 13th chapter, I will explain, or whoever will be the speaker will explain. So, unless and until the desires in the mind is there to enjoy this material world, to try to enjoy through matter, to that extent, the transmigration will continue. The subtle body will not be dissolved. If the subtle body becomes spiritual, then it is dissolved. What is the dissolution? It releases the soul. The soul is released. Then it can go to the spiritual world. Then there is no material existence. So unless and until one has reached the spiritual perfection, one has reached the perfection of becoming completely spiritual. This is what is the change will happen. See, gross body will not change. And soul is spiritual. So what has to change? Only the interface. That is the interface between the gross and the spirit is the subtle body. So our mind, intelligence, and false ego has to change. So the impressions that we are having, what is the impression in material existence? That through matter we can enjoy. So we are having material aspirations, we have material attachments, we have material desires. And to fulfill those material desires, we are transmigrating from one body to another, so that we can get the opportunity to enjoy or to fulfill the desire. But that will never be fulfilled because spirit cannot enjoy with matter. That is completely spiritual, that is completely active. It cannot experience any happiness from matter which is dead. So this futile attempt, like a child, if a child thinks that if he is given the opportunity to just play and he has not been asked to study or to sleep or to eat, he can enjoy the most. But that is because of ignorance. That is because of lack of knowledge. So the soul is transmigrating from one body to another because of the mind, predominantly the mind. Because the mind is having millions of desires and it is thinking that in the next body or given a favorable situation, I can enjoy it. So what we have to change? We have to change the desires. Mind will become spiritualized. So the entire process of Krishna consciousness is that to train our mind to become friend. How? By giving up the illusionary desires which are having. By coming out of ignorance and by being situated in knowledge. So once it is situated in knowledge, then it knows that what is beneficial for him and what is actually detrimental for him. Why he will desire? Those are the cause of his sufferings. So he will uplift himself. The pure mind will work towards progress in self-realization. As one progresses, one sufficiently advances, one gives up his material attachment, then there is no transmigration, then there is liberation. Then the soul is liberated. Liberated means he comes back to his constitutional position. The veil or the curtain of false ego is removed. His false identity of identifying himself with matter is transformed. That is what we saw in the 5th chapter. He does not identify with himself with either the mind or with the body. He is always in liberated state, Brahma Nirvana. Labante Brahma Nirvanam, Rishiyashrina Kalmasha. He is free from the dualities. So, very important. So the mind is the mainstay. What we have to do, we have to reform our mind. We have to reprogram the mind. Like the SIM card is there or the memory card is there. If you, what do you say? If you change the, what is it called? If something gets corrupt, then you reprogram it. So, what is it called? Format. Yeah, formatting is the word. If you do the formatting, whatever last data was stored, it is deleted. Then you have everything new. Whatever you store, it will be there. There will be no influence of what is that. So we have to format our mind. How? With the principles and the conceptions which Krishna is giving. To the extent we are able to format the mind, we are able to delete what is there from our previous lives. To that extent, mind is getting purified and the soul is coming close to liberation. And finally, a day will come when the entire mind is completely formatted or reformed. The spiritual conceptions. With spiritual conceptions, spiritual desires. With material conceptions, material desires. Is it clear? So in the conditioned stage, mind is never dissolved. Mind continues because mind is the reason for the transmigration of the soul by its unfulfilled desire. Okay. Now we come to the second part of your question. Is it clear? Is it clear to you?
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu. Yes.
Just quickly, you have one more aspect of your question, which I can see what you wrote. You are saying that different desires with different minds in different bodies accumulate, and we suffer continuously in this material world due to that. So it is a huge sign of progress if we are able to detect this disease, or if we are able to diagnose that what is the cause of our suffering. Like somebody is inflicted with some disease. So to the extent he is not properly diagnosed, can he be cured? There is no possibility. But the cure can only happen when the diagnosis is done properly. We need a specialist. So on our own, we cannot reform or transform the mind. The mind is very powerful. That is what Arjuna said. Chanchalahi mana Krishna pramati balvadana. It is beginning, it is obstinate, pramati, it is balvat, strong, and Prema. So it's very difficult to change the conceptions of the mind. But with the help of those who are advanced, by following them, by making our mind become committed to follow them, gradually the mind is reformed. Because Krishna's name is Rishikesha. In the first chapter we saw, Krishna is being addressed by Arjuna as Rishikesha. Evam mukva Rishikesha Gulakeshena Bharata Seniyor Viyor Madhye Sthapaditva Rathotama. So Krishna is Rishikesh. And Rishika means the senses, all our senses. Through our knowledge acquiring senses, we gain the intelligence. And through the working senses, we perform actions. So the master of the senses is the mind. The controlling point of the senses is the mind. And Krishna is Rishikesha. Rishikesha means one who controls the mind and the senses. But ordinarily we see in our experience, does Krishna come to control our mind and senses? No. Our mind and senses are controlled by our intelligence. Ideally it should be. But because the mind is uncontrolled, it overpowers the intelligence and forces the intelligence to agree to what it desires or demands. So Krishna controls the senses and the mind of his dear devotees who are agreeing to follow what he is suggesting. So how to control our mind, how to reform our mind? By following what Krishna is speaking in Bhagavad Gītā. And finally he says, he confirms that I will absolve you from all the sins, from all the misgivings. So that is the only way to transform, is to allow someone who is superior. Like you see an elephant has so much power. A human, can it overcome the strength of an elephant by any means? Is it possible by any human effort? The elephant would be having the power of few hundreds or thousands of men. But you see, a skilled rider of the elephant is called Mahot. He sits on the top of the elephant, and he has a small equipment or an arm. It is called Ankush in Sanskrit. I don't know what is the Hindi word or the English word. And he uses that to press the elephant where there are the sensitive points. And the elephant has to follow what his rider says. Even you see the tigers or the lions, you would have seen the circuses. Many times you go in the circus and we see a thin, small, short-sighted person inside the ring with a stick or a hunter, and he's surrounded with ferocious 10, 12 lions. But he has no fear, and he inflicts fear in the heart of those ferocious lions and tigers. Why? Because he knows how to control. If we try to do that, what will happen? The lion may kill and eat us up. But that ringmaster, he knows how to train. So similarly, Krishna is giving us the prescription here in Bhagavad Gītā. How to tame the mind. How to train the mind? By following his message, by following his instruction. Then what happens is, Krishna comes on our side. And there is no force, or there is no Shakti which is higher than Krishna. So the mind becomes easily trained or trainable or tamed. If it is trained, it can be tamed. If it is untrained, it remains untamed. And it causes us to transmigrate from one body to another body. Very important. You will see, Prabhupada, very important, we are giving the overview, but you have to go into the verses and the purports. If you will see in the 6th chapter, Prabhupada writes in some of the purports, I will share with you, that how the mind becomes controlled. In the Dandamani Prabhu, can you show the 6.7 verse? That one who has controlled the mind, how to control the mind. So Prabhupada gives in the purport. Prabhupada gives the key how to control the mind. And what is the only way of controlling the mind? 6.7 verse. Jitatmana prashantasya paramatma samahita. That is the verse 6.7. Okay, come down. So for one who has conquered the mind, the super soul is already reached. And for he has attained the tranquility. For such a man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor, all are same. It seems so impossible for us. How can happiness and distress be the same? How can heat and cold be the same? How can honor and dishonor be the same? It is not possible. But it is possible for those who have conquered the mind. Because it is the mind which is making us experience all these dualities and forcing us in the suffering state. Here Prabhupada says, one mind is fixed on the superior nature. What is superior nature? Superior nature means spiritual nature. Inferior nature is material nature. So right now our mind identifies with matter. So it is in inferior nature. But when the mind is fixed on superior nature means when the mind is fixed on following the spiritual message or the spiritual instructions. He has no alternative but to follow the dictation of the Supreme. So this is how the mechanism of control for the mind will come. We have to fix our mind in following what Krishna is saying and not allow the mind to get distracted or deviated. How? By practicing, by constant practicing. Okay, initially we will not be having a very big success rate. It will be difficult. But does it mean that it is difficult, so we will not attempt? What is not difficult? What is easy in life? You see an athlete who clocks 100 meters in below 10 seconds. How much practice he does throughout his life to be able to come to that stage of being able to have success, to win an Olympic gold. Or you see any other field, most of you are IRI student, to become an ARS, how much you have to study? How many years you have to study? Is it easy? Nothing easy. So why? Because our mind is not favoring us. It is cheating us. So be given to the dictates, desires, and demands of mind? No, Krishna is saying here. The mind is to be fixed on superior nature. That means whatever is the instruction, whatever is the message which Krishna is giving, we must attempt. Sincerely attempting. Success is not result oriented. In Krishna consciousness, success is not on what is the outcome. Success is in endeavor. How much sincerely we are making an effort. So Krishna does not see the final result. He sees what is the intent, with what intensity and honesty we have attempted. So Prabhupada says here, when one's mind is fixed on superior nature, he has no alternative but to follow the dictations of the Supreme. The mind must admit to some superior dictation and follow it. So the mind has completely cheated us for millions of lives. Why? Because it has remained independent and it has remained authoritative. It has not allowed anyone else to become authority on him. So it has forced its authority on us, that's the soul. So how to tame that mind is by following to someone who is spiritually superior to us, that when we follow to his message, when we follow to his guidelines or to his dictations, then gradually the influence of mind gets slackened. Mind will say, no, I will not wake up. It is morning, it is winter. If I wake up, I will get, I will catch cold. Let me sleep. But the spiritual practitioners say that the best time to gain knowledge and to practice is the early morning hours. So what we do? Do we allow the mind to dictate or we follow what is the guideline given? So to the extent we become determined in following, to that extent the influence of mind gradually becomes slackened. And finally the time will come when the influence of mind will be not there. So the effect of controlling the mind is that one automatically follows the dictation of the Paramatma or Super Soul. Because this transcendental position is at once achieved when one who is in Krishna consciousness. So this is very important. If we allow our mind to dictate, then the transmigration cannot be stopped. We will remain transmigrating from one body to another. We will rotate in the cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease. There is no end to it. From one species of life, you can stop this here to another species of life. Very important. How to change the programming of the mind is by not following what the mind is proposing to us or imposing on us. And the alternative is what Krishna is giving and his representatives are giving. That is the only way. That is the only way. There is no other. I gave you so many examples of the person who is on top of the elephant, because he knows how to reform. So if we chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra every day, fixed time, in the morning, fixed round, and gradually the mind will become purified. What is mantra? Mana iti trayate so mantra. Trayate means that delivers the mind. What it delivers? It delivers the mind of all the false misconceptions that it has. The mind is filled with false conceptions, material conceptions. So how to reform the mind? By purifying it with the mantra, with the sound vibration. So we should attentively hear and chant every day, not allowing the mind to remain contaminated. But to the extent we are sincere and serious in practicing the spiritual path which is recommended, gradually we will see the mind will become purified. And the false conceptions of the mind will change, the material desires of the mind will change, and one day the mind will become spiritual, pure, then there is no question of transmigration. Then it will get dissolved. What is the dissolving? That the material conceptions are dissolved. Then the journey will be to the spiritual world. No longer one will rotate in this material world. Very important. Very important. So, who gave that acronym? Very, very important acronym. We should write that acronym in front of our desk so that we remember every day that how the mind treats us. It magnifies the problem. How many of you remember the acronym which Amoghila Prabhu gave? You remember? You remember, Ravinder, the acronym? Have you meditated on that? Yes or no?
Yes, Prabhu. Yes.
Tell me what is the acronym. This will be, revision for all of us.
And as the mind magnifies the problem, it imagines pleasures, but it has not taken any obligation.
It magnifies. It imagines pleasure. The mind is always in a dream world, always dreaming, which has no connection with reality. And it does not allow us to realize our true existence. Very important. We should not allow our greatest enemy to remain giving us this repeated rotation of birth and death. So we have to draw a line that enough is enough. Now, no more of the dictations and desires and demands of the mind. Then gradually the mind can reform. Okay. And if you take to the path of Krishna consciousness, so I'll take the next question. I can see Vartharaj is there. Vartharaj, you want to speak your question? So, okay, Raminder,
Yes, Prabhu.
did you got the understanding? Can you conclude what we need to do? Practice.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah,
Thank you.
summarize. No, I will not leave you like this. So many people had question answer session, but are we really taking the benefit?
Yes,
Otherwise, the
Prabhu.
mind again triggers.
First of all, I have to follow the process which is followed by the superiors. Then only, and fixing our mind by dedicatedly engaged in the devotional practice.
Yeah, take steps, baby steps. We will not be transforming in one day. So one day, what is told, you follow that, and next day you remain determined not to fall back. Yeah. Very important. So step by step, we progress, and gradually, when we follow, our spiritual strength will become more forcible than the forces of the mind. Then the mind cannot detect or cannot teach us. Okay, Vartharaj, go ahead with your question.
Yes, Prabhuji, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
As it has been mentioned by the previous speaker in the last session that the people become devotees at their young age due to the bhakti in their previous many lives. My question is that based on the statement, my question is that why the Lord has not liberated them from the birth and death cycle? Because that's the ultimatum, but why Lord has not liberated even though they are in the as devotees for the past many lives?
Okay. Have everybody understood the question, what he has said, or should I repeat it? In the 6th chapter, there is the final section where Arjuna inquires. How many of you were able to go through the 6th chapter? Study the verses and you know the flow and the progression of the 6th chapter, how it begins and how it progresses, and what is the emphasis of the 6th chapter. See, in one class we cannot give you the entire insight of the Bhagavad Gītā of the chapter. So we are giving you an overview, and we give you 1 week, so that in that 1 week you can enter into the chapter and get a insight, at least the inquisitiveness to know what is there in the chapter. So if you have seen the flow, the final section, just before the final verse, Arjuna is raising a doubt. This is the same doubt which is being paraphrased in different way by Tyagraj. That one who has been a practitioner of this transcendental path, like those who are devotees in early childhood, like we have one devotee with us in his childhood, Kana. Kana, yeah, he is just 10 years old, but his Krishna consciousness is no less to others. He can easily memorize Bhagavad Gita verses, full chapters, not one or two. He has memorized the entire 7th chapter, almost the entire 10th chapter. He hears attentively, and his understanding is no less than others, even better at times. So how? Because it is because of the past performance of devotional practice. So Tyagraj is asking that one who has performed devotional service in his past life, why he did not reach perfection? Why Krishna did not liberate him? So the reason for that is it is answered in the 6th chapter. If you see, this is the 6th chapter where Arjuna is posing the questions. So Arjuna asked this question. Balamani, can you show the question? I think it is 40th verse, 39th verse, 6.39. 39, but 37. Yeah. Continues from 6.37 to 39. Ayati pariyopeta, shraddhayopeta.
Yes,
So
Prabhuji.
Arjuna inquired, "O Krishna, what is the destination of unsuccessful transcendentalists, who in the beginning takes to the process of self-realization with faith, but who later desists due to worldly mindedness and does not attain perfection in mysticism?" So this is one answer. Arjuna is already explaining that somebody takes to the process, he begins earnestly, but due to worldly mindedness. What is worldly mindedness? Is due to material attachments, due to material allurements, due to his misconception, due to bad association. What happened? He deviates, or he gets distracted, or he gets degraded. Like somebody who is a student who has joined IARI after clearing the entrance exam. But just by joining the entrance exam, clearing the entrance exam and joining, is it assured that he will become a PhD scientist? Yagraj? Yeah, you can stop the share. What is your understanding?
No, it means continuous hard work is required.
What is required? He has to study.
Huh.
He has to, he has to exams. Whatever assignments or whatever project is given, he has to accomplish that, isn't it? Then only he can be certified as a PhD scientist. So similarly, those who have begin the process, but they get deviated, like somebody joins here and then he is not preparing for his research work, he is preparing for IES or he is preparing for IFS, Indian Foreign Service. He does not study, he does not do what is required to be done. So is IARI responsible, or he is not getting the completion of his PhD?
No, means he is responsible.
Same way. Now you have the opportunity to progress in this path, but if one fails to follow, he does what he likes and he deviates, then who is responsible? We only are. So it depends. Even after coming in this path, many times there are so many factors which distract us or which deviate us. But having come on this path, so this is the question which Arjuna raised. Very important. It's a very hope-giving. Not only hope-giving, Arjuna is being assured by Krishna, and through Arjuna, Krishna is assuring all of us that whatever little practice we do, even in this life, it will remain a permanent asset for us even for the next lifetime. It will never be lost. In the material existence, if you lose the body, everything is lost. From the next life, you have to start from ground zero. But if you have performed the practice of Krishna consciousness, it is never lost. In the second chapter, the 40th verse, Krishna assured that Neha abhikrama nasho asti pratyavayu na vidyate swalpam api asya dharmasya trahite mahato vayat. That there is no loss or diminution in this process of Krishna consciousness. Even if you have practiced little, like say Kana would have practiced 10% in his last life. So the next life begins with 11%, not with 1. It begins with 11. Or some of you. So to the extent we have practiced, it becomes a permanent asset. And we are given opportunity. You see the verses. So Krishna says, one who has become unsuccessful after a practice of short time. Why? Because of material attractions, material allurements, or material association. The root of deviation is having bad association. There are so many. I can give you so many examples. Those who are very good practicing devotees, even I saw in my own life, in my own experiences. But as they associated with worldly minded people, then their influence became more heavy on them. And they also distracted or deviated. So here Krishna is saying that one who has started this process, who has started the process of self-realization, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said in the 40th verse, he says that, O son of Partha, a transcendentalist engaged in the auspicious activities does not meet with destruction either in this world or in the spiritual world. One who does good, O friend, is never overcome by evil. So whatever progress he has made, he never loses. And then he is given the opportunity. Then Krishna gives a series of verses that the unsuccessful yogi, after many, many years of enjoyment. So please note these verses. This is from the 6th chapter, from where Krishna is answering 6.40 and continued forward. That if after many years of enjoyment, so it's an unsuccessful yogi. So there are two types of unsuccessful practitioners. One who has practiced for a very long time. He is not given the same destination as to the one who has given the destination who has practiced for a short time. The one who has practiced for a short time and he has been allured by material attachments or by material conceptions or misgivings. So because he has material desires, he has developed material desire. So Krishna allows his material desires to be fulfilled. He goes to the higher planets where he gets the opportunity to enjoy more. Krishna says, if an unsuccessful yogi, he goes to the planets of pious living entities and he enjoys there. So Krishna gives the opportunity, but he comes to the sense, he comes to realize that this material enjoyment cannot satisfy him. So then he comes back, he takes birth in the family of a righteous person, which is the Brahmana. Brahmana means that the culture is there of practicing the path of self-realization, or into a aristocratic family. So most of the devotees, they get this birth. And if one has practiced for a long time, and due to some reason he has deviated or distracted, then Krishna says that he takes birth in the family of devotees. From the birth, he gets the opportunity to practice Krishna consciousness. And we see the example of Bharat Maharaj. You know Bharat Maharaj? Bharat Maharaj was the king of the entire planet Earth. And he was very advanced spiritualist. He even gave up everything to perfect the path of self-realization. But while he was in the forest, he became attached to a baby deer. And because of his attachment to the baby deer, he considered the baby deer just like his child, his dependent child. So he became lax in his practice. And at the time of death, he was thinking about the deer. And because he was thinking about the deer, his desires were on the deer body. He next life got the body of a deer. But what about his spiritual practice, which he did? It was not lost. Even in the body of the deer, he remembered what he performed, which is normally not there. Do we remember what we performed in the last body? No. It's all over. It's all covered. But the special provision, Krishna is saying here that Purva Bhyasena Teneva Hiyate Hi Avasha. By virtue of divine consciousness of his previous life, he automatically becomes attracted to the yogic principles. This is the 44th verse. Even without seeking them. Such an inquisitive transcendentalist stand always above the dualistic principles of scripture. So he is given such environment. I'll give you many examples from the day to day, which is happening now. So many devotees, they have become devotees. How? Because just by accident, not by accident, by higher arrangement, they came in touch with other devotees. And whatever they had performed in their past life as practice, it became visible. You know the very famous musician called George Harrison, Beatle. Have you heard about him? Maybe the younger generation now does not know. But few years back, say it's 10, 20 years back, he was one of the greatest names in world music. So when the Hare Krishna people started to preach, when they started to preach in Europe, so Prabhupada's disciples were sent to London. And one of them, Shyam Sundar Prabhu, he met Beatles, and particularly George Harrison. And George Harrison heard the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Because he was a musician, music composer, a singer, he became so attracted to the mantra that he started to chant the mantra, and he made so many albums. And his album became the top chart busters of the entire music world. So his previous consciousness was revived. There is one more. Lanchester. He was born in Israel in 1952. He won Grammy Awards. If you go to Wikipedia, you can find both of these great personalities. There's Lanchester, I have seen him, Habidas Prabhu. I have met him in our temple a few years back. He is from Venezuela. Venezuela is a Latin American country. So he was born to a Jewish father. He was born in Israel in 1952. But in 1953, his father migrated. They went to Venezuela, a Latin American country. And when he was around 20, 1972, he had to travel to Israel for some work. Young boy, 20 years old, young dynamic boy, musician, his interest in music. So he was exploring and he found Prabhupada book, one Prabhupada book, somewhere in Israel. So he was, arrangement was made that from Caracas he was put to Tel Aviv, which is in Israel, thousands of kilometers away. And that one book which he found, he became so attracted. When he came back to Caracas, he started to discuss that book among his friends. And they started to chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Without meeting any devotee, without knowing anything in this life about Krishna consciousness, he started to practice the entire process. And in 1975, the temple was opened. And he is still composing so many songs in a contemporary way. In Latin American Spanish, he is one of the most renowned singers. So this is because of what they have performed in the previous life. It is never dissolved. Never ever dissolved. But the Supreme Lord does not force us. If we want to divert and deviate deliberately, he does not stop us. Of course, the inner consciousness speaks. Our good counselors, our devotees, they stop us. But many times what we do, we do not hear them. We hear our mind and we get distracted, deviated or degraded. Then they are not responsible. We are responsible for our own choices. So we have to become very alert. Like Bharat Maharaj, when he was in the deer body, he was very alert. He did not associate with other deers. He was associating with the saintly persons. There was a hermitage of the saintly persons in the forest. He was found always there, associating with the saints, hearing from them, not associating with the other deers to remain in the deer consciousness. He was in the deer body, but his consciousness was completely spiritual. And in the next birth, he became a Brahmana. He was born in the Brahmana birth and he perfected his life. So it is up to us that how we are practicing. Even in this life, what are we doing? Are we really serious? Tyagaraj, Vartaraj? Are we taking the full opportunity, the opportunity that we have been bestowed? Are we dedicated and committed to the extent we should be?
Maybe gradually getting into it in the future.
No, gradually. But are we really serious about it to the extent we should be?
No.
Whose fault is this?
Means
It is
ultimately
because
ultimately the responsibility is on us.
yeah. Here, the Supreme
Yes.
Lord does not interfere. He is such a loving father that he allows us independence. And he purposely wants that we make the right choice. He does not force us or coerces us. Then we will become like a robot, like a machine, like a mobile phone. Whatever you do, you want to do. You can switch it on, you can switch it off. It has no independence. It is matter, it is dead. But the spirit soul is not matter, it is not dead. It has its own identity and individuality. And Krishna does not ever force or impose his conditions. So we have to, if we are in the right frame of mind, if we are in the right frame of knowledge, then we will make the right choice. But if we are in ignorance, so by default we will make the wrong choice. So now, having come to know that now we should become very aware and alert not to make the wrong choices and to remain in the same situation. That we have to take one more birth and again practice. So 10 becomes 11, 11 becomes 12, or it remains 12. Not that we have to, remain in the material existence birth after birth. Prabhupada said, let us finish off our business in one life and come to the spiritual perfection. The following what Krishna is speaking in Bhagavad Gītā. Okay, there is one question from Devadatta. Okay, she also has a question. Okay, before that, there is a question of Sridhar. What is the difference between conditioned soul and liberated soul? What is the understanding? I think I have already spoken about it. Is it clear or still I should speak on this? Either I don't see you. Huh? I think he has lost connection. Okay, Devadatta, your question is that as you just mentioned, intelligence is 10 times subtle than mind and false ego is 10 times subtle than intelligence. In this context, does the subtle means the fragileness or sensitivity of intelligence? Subtle means that it is beyond our gross perception. That is subtle. Like we see our hands, we see our face, we see the limbs of our body, because it is composed of the gross elements. So our limitation is to see the gross, but subtle means which is not accessible by gross, which is beyond the limit of the gross. Subtle also means it is more powerful. It is not fragile. The soul is not fragile. We read the characteristics of the soul, that it cannot be burned with fire, it cannot be killed with weapon, it cannot be moistened by the water, or it cannot be dried by the air. It is not fragile, it is eternal. Its existence is eternal. But we cannot have the perception of the soul with the gross elements of our senses, the gross senses. It's not possible. So that is why you see, no medical man or no scientist can ever perceive the soul. It's not possible. What to say of soul? It cannot perceive the mind. Is it possible? Not possible. That's not possible. So it is only by the spiritual process that these subtle elements can be known. So how to understand the subtleness here? As Krishna is explaining. Krishna is explaining He says, Indriyani Parani Ahur Indribhyo Paramana. We discussed that in the 3rd chapter. I'll tell you the verse. So we have to accept how do we progress. That is which is beyond our comprehension. So we have to take the experience of those who are advanced. So Krishna is the most advanced. So he is giving here. Yeah. In the 3.42, Krishna says the working senses are superior to dull matter, isn't it? Our sense is more superior than the mobile phone. The mobile phone is dead, but the senses can make the mobile work. And then he says that the mind is higher than the senses. The senses are controlled by the mind. And intelligence is still higher than the mind. And the soul is higher than the intelligence. So this knowledge we are receiving from the foremost authority. So through this process of descending process, the process or the knowledge which is being given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we can come to know. That is the only way. How to understand subtleness. Subtleness is given here in this verse. Okay, that is the only way. About the soul, about the subtleness of our subtle elements of mind intelligence. That is why Krishna is giving the entire discourse on the mind. And he is training us how to control the mind by practice and detachment. I don't know how many of you emphasized on this very important section. Very, very important section. So what we have to practice? We have to practice what is the process given by Krishna. And what is detachment? We have to give up the desires and demand of what our material mind is forcing us. To that extent, we'll progress.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, what I wanted to ask is in the subtleness, degree of subtleness, means mind compared to mind, intelligence is subtler, and compared to intelligence, false ego is subtler, like that you mentioned, right? So in that context, if we want to improvise our mind or intelligence, so we need to move in that direction from mind, first mind, then intelligence, then false ego. Is it like that, or in that way I wanted to ask?
So this is, see, how to control the mind is through intelligence. And how, which intelligence? By deliberate spiritual intelligence. If you see the 3rd chapter, Krishna spoke about it. How to proceed? So you have to do some study also. Krishna says that by the deliberate spiritual intelligence, one can curb the forces of the mind, which is all this lust, greed, anger, and all. Thus, knowing oneself to be the transcendental to the material senses, mind and intelligence, oh mighty Arjuna, one should study the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence. Because the intelligence is higher than the mind, but not in the material aspect. We see our intelligence fails when our mind forces, right or wrong. So what is deliberate spiritual intelligence? That when we follow what the spiritual practitioner or the spiritual person say, like Krishna is speaking here, then the intelligence becomes spiritualized. So that strength is higher than the strength of the mind. We do not do it, in a tabulated way. We do it in a way which is the recommended way. On our own, we can never do it because it is subtle, it is beyond our comprehension. So what Krishna is giving here as his recommendation, if we follow that, it will happen. Like I spoke with you, when the mind has to abide by the superior dictation, then the mind has no choice but to follow. The subtleness is not possible for us to know. We can only have the information, but we cannot have the experience. Experience we will have when we practice the process. Are you getting? Because subtle is beyond gross. And we have gross intelligence, so how with gross we can understand subtle? Not possible. But the possibility is only because Krishna is giving this discourse in Bhagavad Gītā. Is it clear?
Yes, Prabhuji. And I had another small question. Like the false ego mentioned over here, is it different from the ego, normal ego term, which we used to use in a negative sense, means a negative
So
emotion?
see,
Is it
the
different than?
ego means, yeah. When we say false ego means that which is not right. So as I said, that when the living entity comes into this material world, he gets the gift from the material nature by the influence of the three modes. That is false ego. Because of the false ego covering, he identifies himself with matter and the possessions of the matter. As soon as the child is born, whom he identifies himself with, he identifies himself with the family members. He identifies himself with his body. He identifies himself with the land from where he has taken birth. What about his spiritual identity? That is beyond all this. His spirit soul is covered. And that covering is called false ego. Ego gives us the uh, wrong or the false interpretation of who we are because of the influence of the material existence. So in material existence, the ego is always false. It is never true. True ego means that I am spirit soul. I am not a product of matter. But in normal sense, we say ego. Ego means that a person when he shows that he wants to influence himself or he wants to show his importance. That is what we do in this material world. Everybody is trying to become master, controller, enjoyer. That is all because of ego, false ego.
Like what we accumulate throughout our life, like what we identify with, everything we'll be carrying. In that is what false ego is, right, Prabhuji? Is it?
No, no. The false
I
ego
mean,
gives us the false identity. Simple identity. False ego gives us this false identity. It does not allow us to come to the real identity in material existence. So, how to have the true identity? By following what Krishna is saying. Krishna is giving the true identity in Bhagavad Gītā. He's telling Arjuna that they will not be killed. The bodies will only change. You are not the body. You are beyond body. So Krishna is giving the true identity, the eternal identity. Okay, I move on
okay,
because
Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji.
yeah,
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. So keep hearing. See, it will not. See, the conception will not change in one day or in 1 month. It depends on how much we are eager and keen and how much effort we are putting. The most important is to hear. How Arjuna's conception changed? Only by hearing attentively. We will see from tomorrow in the 7th chapter, which will be the second section of Bhagavad Gita, very important section. So Arjuna will be requested by Krishna, rather Krishna will instruct Arjuna to hear attentively. How the spiritual progress will happen is one who is inclined to hear. And why he hears? To apply. Not just to fill the notebooks. The purpose is to apply. Okay. Quickly, there are 2 more questions. I want to take at least one. Yes, Mani, you also had a question. You speak your question.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Before I answer your question, 1 minute. There is one short question I can see on the screen. Kiran is asking that material nature is eternal. So is the mind not eternal? No. Mind is not eternal because mind is always changing. Isn't it? The desires in the mind are always changing. Mind, the composition of the mind is already given by Arjuna. Chanchala hi mana Krishna pramati balvadranam. What is in your mind today, it will change tomorrow. It's eternal. Its existence is also not eternal. But to the extent we remain in material consciousness, it remains our companion. And it forces us to transmigrate from one body to another body. But when the mind is purified, when the mind is spiritualized, it is dissolved. So how can it be eternal? That which is spiritual is eternal. That which is material is temporary. We will see that tomorrow. When we will discuss the 7th chapter, it will become clear. So Krishna will explain that what are the material elements, what are the temporary elements, and what are the eternal elements. That is in the 7th chapter. Krishna will give this Krishna will distinguish these aspects. Okay. Yes, Prabhuji, go ahead.
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, my question is that based on the 6th chapter, please clarify why desire for sense gratification is binding, as Amugla Prabhuji was telling, not sense gratification itself. How can we get rid of desire for sense gratification and have desire for service of the Lord?
See, as far as the karma principle goes, unless and until we act in a certain way, the karma does not act. But very dangerous is the association. If we are in wrong association, or if we are in materialistic association, then in that materialistic association, what aspiration we will have? Like you were saying, if you associate with drunkards, you will become drunkards. If you associate with gamblers, you will become gamblers. And if you associate with saintly persons, you will become saint. Because the aspirations and the desires will be channelized according to the association. So, whatever you sow a thought, what it becomes? The thought gives impetus to words. And words become action. And action becomes our destination. What is the syntax? What is the right flow of this?
Action becomes our habit, Prabhuji. When we
Action
repeat
becomes
that
our
action,
habit, and habit becomes
destiny. Yes.
our
Character.
character, and character becomes our destiny.
Destiny. Yes.
Yes. You gave that discourse. Very important. So based on whatever desires we have, our actions will be according to the desires. What happens first? The action or the desire? What is there? Deed or the desire first? The desire is there. How you became a scientist? By just being a scientist? First the desire came. You prepared. You did BSc, you did MSc, and then you would have, prepared to qualify for a PhD. And then gradually you became to this level that now you are a practicing scientist. So what came first? The desire or the deed? The desire. The desire is very dangerous. Because we act or we work basically to fulfill our desires. That is the material existence. But in spiritual existence, we do not work on our desire. That is not the pivot. That is not the central point. We perform duty. That is most important. Our actions are based on duty. What is told to us, that we perform. Not what we desire or what we demand, or what we feel that, is good for me. So that consciousness is material consciousness. So desires are very dangerous because it will force us. A sinful desire, if we have, then it will force us for sinful action. And what will be the result? We will have sinful reactions. We will suffer. It's very dangerous. And it is binding. It will become a bondage on us. And it will not allow us to perform our duty, which inflict sin. And due to sin, we will suffer. All suffering is due to sin. And what is the sin? The greatest sin is to not perform one's duty. So very dangerous. So association is very important because as I did the 2nd chapter, I explained briefly, not everyone's desire is the same. From an individual to individual, desire changes. So there has to be some basis of desire. What is the basis of desire? Krishna explains in the 2nd chapter. It is the mental conception. And where the mental conception is coming? From the association. If we have wrong association, we will have wrong conception, and based on the wrong material conception, we will have wrong desires. Based on wrong desires, we will perform wrong actions, and due to wrong actions, we will suffer the reactions. How to break the cycle? How to break this, vicious cycle is by cutting the wrong association, the root. Conceptions will change, the desires will change, our actions will change. No more sinful reaction. So how to change the desire from sense gratification to service? By changing the conception. How I can be happy? People are thinking dhanam janam sundari. If I have more wealth, if I have a handsome husband or a beautiful wife, or if I have name, fame, glory, then I can enjoy this world. I can be the master, I can be the controller, I can be the ruler. Everybody is attempting in that frame of mind. Now what are they receiving? What is their situation? Mahaprabhu says, na dhanam, na janam, na sundari. But our mind says, what the hell? I want ha janam, ha dhanam, ha sundari. So, very important conception has to be. Bhagavad Gītā changes our conception. The false conception, the material conception that we are having, it has to change. Okay, there is one question from Sridhar. If I do not get association of devotees in hostel, what we can do, Prabhu? We are coming live in your room. What is the difficulty? Use the best use of the technology, not to go and surf with the Facebook and WhatsApp and what nonsense. You use it to be in association of devotees. I'm giving class every day. Some of the devotees are hearing every day. We are doing one verse after the other. Bhagavad Gītā, we have completed the 10th chapter. Yesterday we completed the 10th chapter. So many devotees are giving this course every day. You be a part of it. Opportunity is there. How much we are interested to really away depends on us. Choice is ours. There is no dearth of opportunity. Are you hearing, Sridhar? You are not there. I don't see you on the screen.
Yes, Prabhu. Here.
Okay. Why your video is off? What is the
Prabhu,
secret that you don't?
Due to heavy rain,
Audible.
Prabhu, in Bangalore, and due to network problems, that's why.
So how this, you see, there is one devotee here, Pradeep Prabhu. Where is Pradeep? He is in China for last 1.5 years. Every day he joins us. Every day, not even one day. He's at least thousands of kilometers far from us. But we don't feel that he is in China. So many things have happened in last 1.5 years, 2 years. COVID, this, that, the Chinese virus, whatever may have happened in the world, but nothing has changed because he is tuned in every day. He is at association, and every day we have his opportunity of association. So what is the difficulty with us?
Please give me opportunity for me also, Prabhu.
The opportunity is there. Opportunity is there every day. We will give you the link. We will share the link with you. Every day we have 8 to 9 class. Prabhupada has created this society every day, hearing morning and evening. Every day morning 8 to 9 Srimad Bhagavatam class. Every day evening 8 to 9 Bhagavad Gita class. There is no society in the world that there is morning evening program of hearing. Hearing is associating. Associating means what? Removing, dispensing, dissolving the false conceptions and cultivating the spiritual conception. Okay. It is beyond 9. I want to end. Okay, there is one question from Nitin. He also is very enthusiastic. Yes, Nitin, boliye.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Boliye.
I have a question, Prabhuji.
Hmm. You always have an engineering question. Okay, go ahead.
Which method and process origin of life started in our earth?
Ah. What is the process, method, origin of life started? When we will come to the 8th chapter, we will explain how the earth comes into, how the life comes in earth. Krishna will explain that in the 8th chapter, attaining the Supreme. First person who is originally, who appears for the creation of the material world is Lord Brahma. He appears from the navel of Garbhodakshai Vishnu. He is the first created being. And from him, others, the progeny begins. Then all the living entities, they are released from the body of Mahavishnu. And creation begins. It is not that we are born from monkeys. Darwin's ancestors, he would be born from monkey. But we are born from the Supreme Lord. We are not born from monkeys. So foolish we are. If we were born from monkey, where is that half monkey, half man? Then in so many millions of years, all the monkeys would have become men. Then why the monkeys are existing? Basic reasoning or understanding is not there. So we are coming from the Supreme Lord. Krishna speaks that. When we see in the 7th chapter, Krishna says, Bijam ham sarva bhutana, vidhi partha sanatana. I am the seed from whom everything comes. It is not big bang. It is well planned. It is planned by Krishna's arrangement. That we will see tomorrow in the 7th chapter. Okay, I will have to stop here. So thank you very much for your inquisitiveness. But my request is, please enter into the mystery of Bhagavad Gita. Just by hearing one class, it is not sufficient. We should every day study at least 15 minutes to half an hour. The purpose of having this question answer on Saturday is that you go through the chapter in the last 5 days. Now we will be coming to the 7th chapter. The subject matter of first 6 chapters should be sufficiently known. For that you have to put an effort. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhuji,
Okay.
for giving your valuable time. Yes, Prabhuji. And I thank all the participants, and I request all of you to join tomorrow at 7:15. So Prabhuji will be taking the session on 7th chapter. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. श्रीमद् भगवद गीता की जय, उपस्थित सभी भक्तवृंद की जय। निताय गौर प्रेमानंदी हरि हरि बोल। हरे